So Daryl is much less coordinated and skillful early on in the show.
Yeah, it seems like maybe his backstory wasn't fully developed and or they had a different thought for him and then later they were like, okay, we're actually going to make him like really skilled in combat and hunting and surviving and kind of the ultimate badass, but like in I think this is episode 4. Do you remember that guy's name? The one that they had in the chair with like the marijuana tattoo on his
Oh, I
neck?
can't remember, but yeah, one of the Vados gang. Yeah.
Yeah. So like Daryl like shows him Merle's hand and like tries to kick him and Rick just like grabs him
Yeah.
like by the waist and like easily stops him and Daryl like kind of falls over like he's kind of clumsy and
Mm-hmm.
like later Daryl wouldn't be like that at all,
Uh-huh.
but it's not like he develops these skills from like the zombie apocalypse world. I mean, maybe a little bit, but later on the story is that like he developed these skills, like these survival skills and combat skills because he had such like a crappy childhood and was left
Mm-hmm.
alone so often that he had to learn to fend for himself.
Right, he just had to do everything for himself, yeah, when Merle was away. Yeah.
Because his
Uh,
dad is like a raging
mm-hmm.
alcoholic and so he would just go off into the woods, right?
Yeah, he would just have to go like hunt squirrels and things like that for food. Yeah, and he would just have to do everything for himself. Yeah, no, he's in the beginning he's much more, it's like a bit more toned down, and then later on he's the ultimate badass, and he would probably beat most characters in a fight, and
Mm-hmm.
he's I don't know.
But like
He's yeah.
here, he's like clumsy and like
Mhm.
not super skilled. Like
Yeah. No, he's like much more graceful and skilled later on.
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
mm-hmm.
And it seems to be that they just made that choice, and it's not, like it's not like he sharpened himself in this world
Yeah.
like to like a huge degree. I mean, he did to some
Yeah.
extent, but yeah.
His voice also really
Yes,
changes.
yeah. Uh-huh. In the early show, he's like much more talkative, and I don't know, his accent, does it sound like thicker later on to you or just different?
Because I was trying to think like there's certain words that sound thicker
Mm-hmm.
earlier, but like then sound like other words sound thicker later. But I think you were right that like overall his voice just gets like deeper and like
Mm-hmm. He's
raspier
like
and
much
gruffier.
exactly, yeah,
It's like
yeah. Uh-huh. He's like yeah, but he's much more talkative, and um yeah, his voice is a bit higher, or maybe not higher, but
and
he's like yeah.
like emotion driven.
Oh, he's like super impulsive and like
Mm-hmm.
kind of hyperactive, which I mean maybe he was like doing meth with Merle, but they don't actually, that I don't
Right.
think that's the implication, but no,
And I
he
maybe just
changes
like
quite a
as
bit.
he gets older, he isn't as emotionally driven. Like he gets
Yeah,
hardened
the
by the zombie
apocalypse,
apocalypse.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah, no, yeah, but he definitely changes quite a bit.
Uh huh.
Yeah, and I think it was like a creative choice to kind of emphasize him as being like the strong, silent badass
Yeah.
of the group. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. So, the plan to go back to Atlanta for Merle and the guns is pretty questionable because it, like, as Shane says, Rick is taking away half of the fighters and some of their weapons.
After their camp,
Uh
like
huh. Like,
just
yeah.
found the first walker, like feeding on
Mm-hmm.
that deer,
Yeah,
right? Like.
exactly. Yeah. It was like, oh, this is the first walker that's come up this far. And then, hey, let's immediately take
Mm-hmm.
off
Yeah.
and basically do nothing to really think of, like to make the camp safer. Like,
Right.
hey, let's everybody get closer together. Let's like
Right.
set up a perimeter. Let's take some basic precautions. Let's do something sensible.
But then, like, also in Atlanta, like they get the guns, and like Glenn gets kidnapped,
Mm-hmm.
and so they have like the like kind of the standoff with that other group, but there's nothing from that storyline, right? Like you were saying, that like
It's,
contributes to the full story.
it's basically a waste of time. I mean, because we see the Vados, the nursing home gang, and, like, yeah, there's that little thing, but it's basically just killing time, and there is, I didn't realize this when I watched the show the first few times, but apparently there was a deleted scene where later, I think it's like in the first episode of season 2, but there is a deleted scene where they go and try to find this nursing home group,
Oh.
like after the CDC, and they're all dead. Which I mean, okay, so they do address it, but that also basically confirms that it was pointless
I
because
guess,
they just all died. Like,
the
okay,
only
God.
like I guess the only like story arc thing about going back to Atlanta was that they found out that Merle was still alive.
Yeah, yeah. No, but I mean, other than that, it doesn't really contribute anything. Yeah.
But they also say like, well, Merle's gonna go back to the quarry and like give him
Daryl,
hell and stuff like
Daryl's
that.
like,
And like,
yeah,
I
he's
don't
like,
think
he'll
he
be
did.
bringing vengeance back, and then it's like, oh well, I don't know. I guess you don't know your brother. I mean, maybe that was his plan and something happened, but no.
Yeah.
But then it's just like, well, he's gone. So
Right.
until we see him much later, yeah, no. But and then of course the camp is attacked, and
And like
honestly,
it's
Shane was right to be like, well, I don't know if this is a good idea.
right, and like it's just it's kind of like silly like how it's attacked, like just what's Andrea's sister's name?
Oh, Amy.
Amy, thank you. She's like, we have no toilet paper, and like her arm is like pushing the door open, and this walker's just like,
And I was like,
ah,
and like
and just,
slowly
like,
bites into her, and
right,
she's
she's
just like, what?
like she doesn't like do anything. She doesn't like try to fight it, or and she just like lets it eat her. Like,
Yeah. And then I think she like, then we cut away but then like when we cut back to her, it's like another one is like, she's
biting her
basically
neck,
just
like,
still standing
yeah,
there and like
yeah.
letting them bite her, and she's just not doing
But
anything.
you
Yeah.
also brought up a good point that like there's no rustling of the leaves,
Well,
like
they're,
as
like-
they're approaching, like
They're completely stealthy. They're like ninjas until they appear.
Right.
And it's like, okay. Like, they're not making any
Right.
noise. They're not
And-
rustling the grass.
right,
They're not
why
moaning.
like
They're
why
not
were there
doing
no precautions
anything.
taken? Like we did see at one point there was like a string with cans.
Yes.
So like if someone was approaching from that way they would hear that, but it doesn't seem like they did that on the other sides of the camp.
Like, apparently that didn't work. I mean, apparently the walkers just happened to,
Yeah.
like, they're not using any strategy, but somehow they managed to just perfectly
Mm-hmm.
ambush them. Like, somehow.
And also like the rate at which a person turns
Mm-hmm.
like reanimates is really inconsistent
It
because with her like it takes all night
Mm-hmm.
into the next day, and then oh my god, this it's just really frustrating how like she reanimates and she's like touching Andrea's head and like Andrea's face, and like it's supposed to be like sentimental, like she's stroking her hair and Andrea's getting to say goodbye, but like we've seen later on that like when they reanimate, like they're kind of strong and like they're like reanimated. It's not like a slow transition.
Exactly.
Of
It's not like they're like
gaining
waking up or something.
not consciousness because they're not conscious, but like
Coordination?
yeah, like it's not like it's not like a baby that has to like learn how to walk or whatever. They're just like all of a sudden they're a walker. Like
they just activate and then
Right.
yeah. No,
Right.
you're right. Oh no, yes, exactly. It's supposed to be this very sentimental scene where she's like, yeah, saying goodbye, and I mean, okay, but that's not your sister.
right.
It's like how is that, like, how is it sentimental to wait until she reanimates before putting her down? Like, how is that, like, okay, so she's moving around, but like she's not alive.
Right.
It's no different. I mean, like, wouldn't it be more dignified if she like said her goodbyes, like, oh, I'm sorry I didn't come home for your birthday, Amy. I was a terrible sister, and like, wouldn't it be a bit more dignified to like say that
To her dead
to her
body.
lifeless
Yeah.
body, and then and then shoot her in the head or whatever.
Before she turned, before
Uh-huh,
she reanimated.
versus like waiting all night and until she reanimates and then saying this,
Yeah.
and then like putting your forehead to her forehead
Right.
and shooting her in the head,
And like damaging your own
uh-huh,
hearing in the process
uh-huh,
realistically.
yeah. No, it's a bit silly. It's supposed to be very sentimental, and like I think we're supposed to like
Feel
feel for
bad.
Andrea,
Yeah.
but it's really just kind of it doesn't really make a lot of sense. And also, usually the walkers are able to like grab onto people and like grapple with them, and it's usually kind of difficult to like get them off of you if they grab onto you.
Right.
But very conveniently, Amy is like somehow so weak that
Yeah.
she's just like impotently
Yeah.
pawing at Andrea, and like she grabs onto her hair, but Andrea is able to just effortlessly like stop
Right.
her from hurting
Right.
her. And it's a bit silly. It's very, very convenient for the scene that plays
Yeah.
out that way. Yeah.
So, one of both of our, like, I don't know, pet peeve maybe the right might not be the right word, but like something that just irritates both of us throughout the entire show is their obsession with burning the bodies.
Yes. They have a borderline sexual obsession with burning bodies, and like, okay, it's like, oh, they're diseased, so we gotta burn the bodies, and like,
And I guess,
there's
like,
just so much wrong
Like
with that. I don't know where to
at
begin.
this point, when they don't know a whole lot because they haven't gone to the CDC, like maybe we could give them the benefit of the doubt that they thought that would help, like, stop spread of whatever. But like later on, like, why
keep doing it,
are we
yeah.
doing this? Like, it's gonna make everything smell. It's gonna make them smell. It's going to attract more because they're gonna see the fire. They're gonna see the smoke.
Yeah.
It's going to attract like
a
living
waste of
and dead
fuel.
people. It's a waste of fuel. It's a waste of energy. It's a waste of time.
It accomplishes absolutely nothing.
Absolutely nothing.
And it actually like harms them. It
Yeah.
puts them in danger.
Yeah.
Oh no, it's absurd.
Because like they don't know if at this point, if like, actually you're right, they don't know at this point
if it could like be spread by the
Right,
smoke
yes,
or something.
yes,
yeah.
yes.
No, that's a good point. Yeah. Oh no, it's insane. And okay, when they're doing it in the camp after they're attacked, okay, they have the pyre, they're like burning the bodies like 5 feet away from where they're sitting.
Right.
Like, are you kidding me? Like, you're doing it right there? Like, what? That doesn't, like, you could just throw them into the brush, like, just, there's... And I mean, okay, they're not 100% on what their plan is going forward,
Right.
but they're basically sure that they're gonna leave the camp.
Right.
So that's another reason that it doesn't, like, it's completely useless. Like, it doesn't really matter what you do with the walker corpses at that point. Like, just throw them anywhere. It doesn't matter what you do with them. And, like, and they're not burning, I mean, like, what is it, Daryl and, somebody else, was it maybe T-Dog? Like, whoever was burning the bodies, like, they were gonna burn, like, their, the human dead, too.
Right.
And then Glenn's like, oh my god, you can't do that.
Right.
Like, there are people,
But then, like, just like 10 minutes later or something like that, someone's like, it's the rules. And I don't even remember what it was about, but like, it's the rules. And Rick's like, we have no rules. And it's like, except for anything that you and Shane
Any
say.
passing thought that either one of them has and is like, I think this is the right thing to do. And it's like, oh yeah, but that's like an ironclad, that's like, that's a commandment from God. Like,
Right.
anything
we
you
have
feel
no
like
rules.
doing.
We have no rules except for what I say when
Yeah.
I say.
Because shortly before that, he was like, he put a gun to Daryl's head and was like, we don't, or, no, okay, actually that was with Jim. Never mind, that wasn't about burning the bodies, but that was about not killing Jim, but...
Right.
Yeah, but no, yeah, Rick is very, very inconsistent about pretty much everything. So let's see. And then, okay, Jim is bitten.
So yeah, let's talk about Jim really quick.
Uh-huh.
They're like, oh, we gotta get to the CDC to find out if we can help Jim.
There could be a cure.
But then, like, they literally spend all day at camp.
Uh-huh. Like, they put Jim... Okay, Jim is sick. They put him in the RV, and then they, like, waste an entire... It's what seems like an entire day just doing jack shit.
Like, arguing about if they're going to the CDC.
Or, like, Shane wants to go to Fort Benning.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and, like, but Rick is like... The CDC is that's where there'll be a cure and it'll be defended and it's like, and I mean, because he's like, we gotta find a cure for Jim, and it's like, but you're letting him waste away quickly in the RV while you're wasting so much time talking about this and like arguing and like just and like saying goodbye to everybody and like everybody's deciding what to do, and it's like, well, wow, like, because he's basically saying, like, we got to do this right away, we got to make this decision right away because of Jim, and it's like, but you're basically letting Jim die while you're wasting time on random crap.
And then when Jim's like this is too much for me, I'm in pain, let me, like, just leave me here, and Rick's like, I don't know if I can do this. And they're like, it's not up to you, Rick. And it's like, well, no, it's really not. Like, he's like, I don't know if I can leave him here to die. And it's like, and well, Jim's then maybe you should have, like... I just want to be left here to die. And he keeps saying it, like, over and over. Like, are you sure? And he's like, I've said it, like, 6 times now, dude.
And
like,
they're like, I don't know about this. And it's like, but he keeps saying it over. And it's like, he's going to live, like, I mean, he's in really bad shape.
Right.
It's like, he's going to die in an hour.
Like, if you didn't feel comfortable letting him die, then why did you take so long at the quarry?
Yeah, and like the time to do something is a long time ago.
Right, and he's like, Jim's like, I want to be with my family, and Rick's like, do you know what you're saying? But like, they know that he was bitten. They know that he's going to turn. They should have killed him. Yeah. I mean, I guess at this point they don't know what you have to do exactly to kill they just know, the like, Walker virus, head. But yeah, they should have done something, because we were talking about, like, what if he reanimates and, like, he kills someone else's family? Like, that's on them. That's on them. That's Rick's fault, pretty much.
They could have at least, like, tied him to the tree or something.
Tied him, which we also said that would have been a really kind of a cool, like, mini web series. Like,
if they did, like, webisodes about what happened to Jim after he reanimated, and he, like, immediately stumbles upon, like a family whose car broke down or something on the road, and then it's like, oops, he ate them all. Like, well, that's awkward. I mean, you guys could have done something, but you were like, again, it's like this, what seems like sentimental over, like, any kind of logic or reason about, like, what's actually the right thing to do in this situation.
So at this point they are going to the CDC, but Rick, he was, like, on the radio telling Morgan before, he was like, don't go to Atlanta. It belongs to the dead. It belongs to the dead. Yeah. Right. But then they're like, oh, we're going to go to the CDC. We're going back to Atlanta.
Yeah. It's like, there's, like, I mean, on the show, I think it was, like, maybe 5 minutes in between those two scenes. It's like, well, wait a minute. Like, make up your mind.
Now. And I just, like, those radios are not secured lines. Like, other people could be listening in. You could have, when you were like, oh, we're outside of Atlanta, we're at a rock quarry,
like a few miles northwest,
like,
at a rock
you
quarry.
are telling other people your location, and they could ambush you, and then you're telling Morgan that you're not there anymore, that you're going to the CDC, and you even tell him, like, I'm gonna leave you instructions to find us. Yeah. Right, like a map and instructions on a red car, and it's not even hidden. It's just, like, taped to the freaking window.
Yeah, the one Glenn drove in.
Yeah, you are just asking for someone to ambush you and kill all of you.
Yeah, that could have easily backfired. You are making a map
for them. Oh my god.
He's like, I'll leave. I mean, not really, but, like, he basically, it would have been like, he's like, I'm gonna leave comic books every 5 feet as a trail for you and Dwayne. Like Jesus, like, Oh no, it's very, yeah, it's very suspect. I mean,
Yeah.
I know he wants to like hook up with Morgan again, but it's, yeah, I mean, like if Morgan is there, then he still has the radio. Like it's
Yeah.
kind of like, I don't know if like leaving the map and everything is necessary, and it could easily backfire on them. Yeah. No,
So,
it's oh, go
I don't
ahead.
know, it's okay. So then, like, they actually go back to Atlanta to go to the CDC, and it just like all of a sudden, just like the shot just is them
Mm-hmm.
pulling up to the CDC, but there's like no walkers around.
Mm-hmm.
There's like some dead bodies, and there's a ton of flies, which is weird because flies
Uh-huh.
never really come up
Ordinarily. Yeah.
again.
Uh-huh.
I do really like how,
Mm-hmm.
like, as they're like walking up to the CDC building, that like
Mm-hmm.
some of the flies are kind of like landing on the camera on the
Right,
screen.
right.
They're like in the they're like right there on the. I do think that's a cool shot. But so they're pulling up. There's all these bodies around, but there's not walkers really
Mm-hmm.
around,
It
and
seems reasonably safe.
right,
Yeah.
and they just like drove in without any issues that we know
Yeah,
of.
apparently walkers like didn't, like they didn't really draw any attention,
Yeah.
like nobody followed them.
So saying like Atlanta belongs to the
Yeah.
dead is like that doesn't seem very accurate
Uh-huh.
anymore.
Yeah, no. Whenever they go back to Atlanta, it doesn't really seem reflected. Like
Mm-hmm.
the danger in like the first two episodes where, oh, they're like the streets are just filled with walkers, and
Mm-hmm.
yeah, like
Mm-hmm.
it's a really dire situation that doesn't actually seem reflected when they go back. No, I agree. It's and so then they get there, and it like almost immediately nightfall
Right,
arrives
right.
like abruptly.
They
It's
like get
it's
out
like
of the RV and
uh-huh,
like
and it's
they're up
like
at
bam.
the doors and it's like and then a walker comes up like 1 minute
Mm-hmm.
later. Yeah, it's just nightfall
Yeah, and like
instantly.
there's really no sunset. It's just
Right.
like day when they get
Yeah.
there, and then 1 minute later, night.
Like you couldn't have planned that better?
Yeah, like guys, I mean, yeah, exactly.
You
Like
know that
there was
walkers
no
are
huge rush.
right.
Jim is dead. There's no
Right,
like
right.
just time it so you arrive during
Right.
the day. I mean, there's no rush. Like there's no excuse for that.
Mm-hmm.
And then they get there, and like, yeah, there's one walker. Daryl's like, Walker, and shoots it. And then, like, everybody just starts losing their minds. Like, everybody starts, like,
oh my god,
crapping
it's
themselves.
night. We
And,
didn't realize it was
uh-huh.
night. Like
And, like, they get there, and it's, like, the shutters are, like, over the doors at the CDC.
mm-hmm.
And, like they try to get them open, and then just everybody's like losing their minds, and it's like, well, okay, what did you expect? Did you think that you could just walk in and like it would be the easiest thing in the world? Like, I mean, you went there because you thought it would be well protected.
Yes.
So, but then you're just like
Surprised.
terrified and panicked when it's like
When it's
not
secured.
when you can't just waltz in.
Mm-hmm.
It's ridiculous. I mean, their reactions are like, okay, sure, you're like concerned and frightened, but like that doesn't justify how panicky everybody is getting immediately, and they're just like, oh my god, this was
Right, this was the
a
worst
bad
idea
yeah,
ever.
and it's like, well, okay, but yeah, and then let's see, oh, and like yeah, and Rick's just like, because he sees the camera
Right,
move.
you're killing
He's
us.
like, you're killing us.
We have
It-
children
uh-huh.
and women. You're killing us.
Yeah, and Shane is like, it's a machine. It's gears,
It's
Rick. It's
automatic.
winding down, which
It's
is kind of
automatic.
ridiculous. A ridiculous thing to say, but yeah. And so they're just like losing their minds, and then finally, like the door opens.
And it's so dramatic.
And it's like so like the bright
dramatic.
light,
Like
and
it looks like it's like from an alien movie or something.
exactly.
Like,
It's a bit overly dramatic the way it's shot.
mm-hmm.
Oh, and so I wanted to, okay, so Jenner, that's the scientist, Bruce Jenner, I like to call him, who's the scientist who's in the CDC. Like we see him in there. We see him in there doing his recordings and stuff, and he's like working on the brain matter samples.
And this is like the shot before they actually get to the CDC.
Right. It is, yeah. And so, like, we see him working, and he's, like, going into the lab in his protective suit and, like, working on the samples and doing things to them with some kind of corrosive agent in a test tube. Okay, so he goes in there, And he is, like, I think it was before that, he was, like, in his recordings, he was saying, oh, I'm having trouble, keeping a regular schedule. I'm underground. I don't know if it's day or not. Like, sleep schedule. I don't know if it's day or night. And so, like, okay, so maybe he's, like, sleep deprived, which might kind of justify some of the stupid things he does. But, okay, so he's, like, working on the brain matter, and he has this corrosive substance in a test tube, and then he's like, oops, and with his big ridiculous protective suit, he, like, knocks the corrosive substance all over the brain sample, right? And, you know, it starts fizzling. So then, okay, he should know better than to start stabbing his fingers into this. He's like, what is going, and it's like, okay, wow, okay, so...
And he, like, pulls off one glove and it, like,
and he's like,
corroded down to the next,
and it's like,
the second
dude,
layer of glove.
yeah,
Like,
it's like, okay, you know this, you know the stuff you're working with,
and
like,
you
okay,
saw
maybe
that it was corroding the brain.
it's like fizzling, and
mm-hmm.
yeah, and I mean, okay, so, okay, I guess we could say he's sleep deprived, and that's why he's being so stupid, but that's still really dumb. I mean, because then he's like, yeah, his gloves are corroding,
right. And there should have been preventative measures before that.
Should
anyway.
have just been a cap on the tube or something.
Or,
but
like,
placed it over here where he's not gonna, like, knock it over. And it's
or
like,
a stand
it's perfectly
that's
situated,
it,
so it'll just flow into the brain sample. Yeah, no, there are just any number of ways that could have been prevented.
And then he runs into, like, the decontamination chamber, and, like, the automated system.
The computer is like, corrosive substance detected. Like, this will be poisonous if inhaled. Initiating countermeasures. And then, like, incinerates the lab? Okay, so... Oh my god. Okay, so... How is that the appropriate response to a corrosive material, like, getting into the air? Okay. I don't think incinerating the lab is the right thing to do in that situation. I mean, you could just vent the atmosphere. You could do almost anything, right? Mm-hmm. That's problem number one. And then problem number two is, like, you're destroying everything in the lab by incinerating it.
Yeah.
And he's like, no! And it's like, well, okay, wow. I mean, I guess I didn't really think about this until now, but also, I mean, he had, like, a big dish with brain in it, you know, and that was the sample that he desperately needed.
Yeah, he was like, this was the best we had, everything else was necrotic.
This was fresh. So, like, okay, you didn't need to have the whole sample. Like, you should have cut it into smaller pieces and test. Kept some of it. Yeah. Like, you should have kept some of it in safety. Like, you didn't need... Like, I don't know, what is it, like a, like, you know, like a small plate? Yeah. Like, yeah, you didn't need that much for whatever test you were doing.
Right.
All we saw was, like, some cells, like, zombifying, like, you know, like, becoming zombified. Right, yeah. Right. And so, that was not acceptable. That was, like, everyone at the CDC who, like, put these measures in place and programmed the computer, hired Bruce Jenner, like, every aspect of it was deeply flawed, and it shouldn't have played out that way, and I object to it. That was very stupid. That's what taxpayer money is going towards, hiring Bruce Jenner. That was not a good way of illustrating what he was doing, I think. If it's supposed to make us think that he's borderline competent, then no, that was a terrible, terrible mistake.
So overall, I guess there's a lot of, like, flaws.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
And like, maybe it's supposed to, like, maybe they're supposed to do this because it's showing how...
like, frayed he is, and, like, or are you thinking...
Well, like, for the entire episode where, like, they spend too much, like, they don't set up security, they spend too much time with the dead bodies, like, instead of getting Jim the help, and, like, there's just a lot of things that they did not do well or correctly in, like, every aspect.
Maybe. Maybe. If we're being generous, then we could say that it was a deliberate thing. Yeah, possibly.
To like show that they're stupid and like they don't know what they're doing yet.
And that could be. I mean, if so, then it was done well done.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. No, I agree. Yeah. I think yeah. No, that there were just many things that they could have and should have done differently.
Mm-hmm.